Okay, I want to welcome you to the Planning Commission today. And so we'll initiate ourselves with the Pledge to Allegiance. So if you can join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for being here today. And I guess what we'll start off with is a roll call.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner DeMattei.
Here.
Commissioner Dahlgren.
Here.
Commissioner Herzog.
Here.
Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Watts.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so, well, today's Planning Commission is open to virtual and in-person participation. They may be observed online through Placer County website. If you would like to make public comment virtually, please raise your hand with the hand icon on the bottom of the page. If you are calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open the public comment for a specific item you would like to address, which may include public comment for matters not included on the agenda, as well as a consent item or a timed item. Each commenter will be entitled to 3 minutes of comment time. Thank you for your patience as we work to ensure that each citizen who wishes to comment has the opportunity to do so. Please be advised that today's hearing is being recorded. Okay, with that, I'll ask for the planning director's report.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Chris Bahuli, Planning Director. I have a few updates for you this morning. Wanted to note recent board action. On March 28th, the board took action on the DeFay variance appeal. As a reminder, this was an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of the appeal of the zoning administrator's approval. Sorry, that's a little bit of a mouthful, of a homeowner's variance to request a roughly 1,000 square foot addition to their home in Newcastle. Wanted to note for you all that the board did unanimously act to deny the appeal and approve the variance request. So again, that happened on March 28th. As far as upcoming items to the board of note, next week on April 18, the board will consider the suite of entitlements that the Planning Commission recently heard for the Creekview Ranch development in the Dry Creek Community Plan area. Transitioning to upcoming Planning Commission hearings, I wanted to note that we are expecting the entitlement package for the Project 8 winery to be on your April 27 agenda. The project has recently been considered by the Horseshoe Bar Penryn and the Newcastle Ophir Max, and there was a virtual town hall meeting on the zoning text amendment last week. Given the amount of public interest in that project, I would expect a lengthy hearing at that April 27 hearing, so I would plan accordingly for a rather lengthy hearing. Lastly, a bit of housekeeping. One Planning Commission member did request that we explore establishing Placer County email accounts for the Planning Commission. I've communicated with our IT department, and that is something that we can set up. So I would like to hear from planning commissioners if there are any concerns with moving to establishing Placer County email accounts for all of you to conduct Planning Commission business. But that is something that we can set up for you.
Okay, any questions or comments on that?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it to you. I don't know if I was the one, but after the conference, I think reflecting on practices and the right way to communicate, I'm a fan of having an email account established and recorded here with the Planning Commission. So I think I would like that.
Yeah, we did talk about that at the deal in Orange County. And actually, when I got home, I took all my emails from my personal account and made my own personal, I guess, Planning Commission email. So that has been changed. So that way, anything, and I sent it out to Andrea already, and I believe to you guys, and so I think it's a great idea if the county does it for us, or we do it on our own. I think it's a good way that we've learned to separate our personal stuff from what's coming out from the community.
The one thing that I will note in discussion with IT is that you will not be able to move or have the account on your mobile devices. So it would be an account that you would have to access via your home computer or laptop.
What would stop us from using our phone? If it's an email address, we can just pull it up on any device.
Yeah, I'll have to talk more with IT, but it sounded as if there was a prohibition of allowing the email account to link to your personal phone. And also there's, if we were to provide that access, that should there be a Public Records Act request, then they would need to have access to your phone. And so there might be
Yeah,
good
'cause
reasons why you wouldn't want to
Because
have access.
technically, we could put it on our phone. You couldn't prevent that. At least at the server level, you couldn't stop us from downloading it. But that's the reason, because then you would be able to subpoena our personal phone. Okay.
Right.
got it.
Yeah, and actually, if you're using personal email addresses now, those would be subject to PRA requests as well. If you're using personal email addresses for county business or planning commission business. So that is, in the law, is already something that is subject to a Public Record Act request.
Right, so now that I've set up a different one, I guess it's still considered personal, right? Even though it says my name and Placer County Planning Commission. Yeah, that was
guess
a mistake.
In some sense, it doesn't matter whether it's personal or not. If you're conducting planning commission business on it, it's subject to a Public Record Act request.
That's why I separated it, so if it did go to public, then that's all that's on there is strictly that stuff. So it would still be advantageous for us to have our own through the county. Probably, right? Okay.
Yeah, one of the things I notice is like the supervisors, the county issues them a phone that they can use to keep the public business separate from their private business. So there might be something in relationship to that would cause us not to be able to use our own cell phone. That's my guess.
Okay, well, based on the conversation, I'll work with IT to work on establishing email accounts for the planning commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a minute. Okay, so now it's time for me to open the meeting to the public on any item that's not on the agenda today. And so,
Sir, I saw that your hand was raised. Now would be the time if you wanted to comment on that too.
yeah.
I'm from Penrith. Having experience with email addresses in my prior technical life, this is maybe already being considered. However, what I would like to suggest is that there be an email associated with the position of the office, such as chairman or vice chairman or whatever, as well as possibly a specific name associated with it, so that an individual who doesn't know that Richard Johnson is no longer the chair of this committee, they could still send an email to the chair of whatever this board is called and not have to know that it's not Richard Johnson anymore. Am I making any kind of sense? You essentially end up with two email addresses that go to the same place. One always goes to Richard Johnson, the other goes to the chairman. When somebody else becomes a chairman, it goes someplace else. So that the end user doesn't have to know that, oh, the chair is Richard Johnson, I just send it to the chair or the vice chair. Am I making any kind of sense?
Yeah, I hear you, but
Okay,
let me kind of
that's-
give you some feedback on that.
I was just offering it as something to
Yeah.
consider.
The chairman is really in a position here to operate the meeting and make sure the public has comments during the meeting. But otherwise, outside of the meeting with these new email accounts to the individual planning commissioners, each planning commissioner is equal on the committee. The chairman is only distinguished because the chairman manages his meeting. So So probably it doesn't matter if you want to talk to Richard Johnson or you want to talk to Anthony DeMay. You can do it through that new established email account.
Okay, I'm
Make
only
sense?
trying to think of the end customer, your constituents, right?
Yeah.
Trying to find a way to make it easy for them to communicate without having to know the name of the person they're supposed to be talking to.
But our constituents are by district.
Uh,
We'll figure it out. Thank you.
Anyway, that's all I was trying to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let me see, I did mention earlier, but you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Karen Green. I live in Penryn, and I have a couple businesses in Newcastle. And I'd like to make a request of this Planning Commission in light of an upcoming meeting. So I'm requesting that all the MACs in Placer County be notified of the April 27th Planning Commission meeting and be forwarded the comments from the April 5th Zoom ZTA workshop addressing the proposed change of the current 36-foot height limit of structures in the wine and beer ordinance. Last fall, residents were told that there would be local area workshops to consider and comment on the applicant's request to change the current winery ordinance. Not a variance to construct a 75-foot tower, but a countywide change to that ordinance to allow structures of 75-plus feet to be built at any brewery or winery countywide. Those workshops that we were promised were never materialized. This is a significant modification, and frankly, in my opinion, presentations should have been made to each county MAC, not just Penryn, Ophir, and Newcastle Horseshoe Bar. As the impact will affect every area where current and proposed wineries are constructed, residents have the right to know and comment about this proposed ZTA, and the county has a responsibility to be transparent in addressing the applicant's request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next person?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission members. My name is Gabrielle Windgasse. I'm a Horseshoe Bar Penryn MAC member, and I want to also address the upcoming Planning Commission meeting for the Project 8 winery. I will not be available on that date, so I want to give my comments today. The Horseshoe Bar Penryn MAC voted 3-2 in favor of this entire package, the winery as well as the ZTA. And I want to make sure that you are aware that this does not reflect the context of this MAC meeting. We received the vast majority of comments and input was against the winery. Even the MAC members had grave concerns, but they are not documented in this 3-2 vote. And I'm sure you can find more information about that. I would like to make my comments on the potential public health concerns for this site. Particularly, there was high concentrations of arsenic found in subsoil on this site. The concentration found was 32.5 milligrams per kilogram. And that was, and I quote from the draft EIR, "This concentration is likely to be representative of naturally occurring arsenic concentrations present at deeper depth beneath the site." This concentration was found at the surface in an area that had been cut 20 feet deep. So technically it is subsoil, or technically they sampled the surface, but it was subsoil. All of that cut that was taken out is potentially contaminated with high arsenic. And this fill material was placed on the site. So what was in the subsurface and was high in arsenic is now on the surface. The project itself proposes to have a complete, the grading plan proposes to have 190,000 cubic yards of cut and excavation for the tower, the caves, the entire winery. How much soil are we talking about? A large dump truck can contain about 14 tons of soil. This is the equivalent of 10 cubic yards. So we are talking 19,000 truckloads of potentially arsenic-contaminated soil being placed on this site. I have made these comments to the draft EIR. I've made them at the MAC. I made them yesterday at the Planning Commission's meeting, and these concerns have not been addressed. Placer County cannot ignore this public health concern. This concerns the past exposure of workers on the site, the residents nearby, and residents affected from runoff. Particularly arsenic, as you know, is a strong carcinogen, and inhalation exposures are of great concern. You cannot ignore this. This public health concern needs to be investigated and communicated to the community before you proceed with this. So I recommend that you further investigate this before you approve. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Marilyn Jasper, Public Interest Coalition. The aforementioned project that's going to be coming to you is a convoluted, egregious proposal hiding behind the skirt of a winery. It's loophole contortions to avoid code compliance and enforcement, plus its spin on the county's right to farm ordinance are shameful. The large winery operation itself is in its final stages of approval, but jammed into that proposal is a deliberate attempt to also pass a zoning text amendment by making it part of the winery proposal, which somewhat snookers the public to avoid a much-needed CEQA analysis of that ZTA. Project 8 will severely impact Penryn's bucolic rural residential ag landscape by imposing a monolithic, non-conforming, octagonal tower that is grossly inconsistent, a visual eyesore, and a violation of the county's height limitations. It will impact neighbors and community with unwanted noise and traffic. The county's right to farm ordinance lists acceptable activities that are not considered a nuisance as long as the activity is, quote, conducted in a manner consistent with proper and accepted customs and standards as established and followed by similar ag operations. Then it mentions specific practices of those operations as incidental, such as preparation for market, transportation, delivery, etc. Restaurants and accessory uses are not mentioned at all. The project ZTA was sneaked in to exempt Project 8 from code compliance, and it includes other unacceptable language such as countywide and applying only to wineries, as if, oh, no problem. The right to farm ordinance does not exempt Project 8 wineries' reckless, illegal 75-foot tower, and in the different notices and material that we look at, there are 3 different measurement starts for that tower that are given. Public has no idea which one is it going to be.
Okay,
I'll
Marilyn-
just end
Marilyn,
it
could
that
you
this
wrap it up?
atrocity is coming to you soon. I hope you can take the time to read some of the things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Carrie Fennig. I'm a resident of Penryn and agree with comments that have been made. I am not for, I am against many of the elements of the winery, including the tower, not the winery itself per se, but just the ways that it goes outside of the community plans. One of the things that I wanted to mention that I've kind of found out looking at some of the records is I was concerned about, for the Board of Supervisors, how did, was there any play between the winery developer Fournier and the district supervisors? I looked at county records and I did find thousands of dollars that was contributed by Fournier to at least 2 of the supervisors. And in private business, that would be considered a conflict of interest. and people would recuse themselves from decisions. I don't know that that's going to happen in these decisions, and I'm concerned about it, how that might have been influenced. The other thing that I looked online trying to educate myself was about ridgetop protections. And when I looked at various documents for Placer County, there was a lot of talk around, or a lot of writing about protecting ridgetops. In the Placer County General Plan, pages 39 and 43, in the Rural Design Guidelines for Placer County, page 11, and Horseshoe Bar Penryn General Plan, page 78. All of those documents refer to protecting the ridgelines in our community, not having monstrosity buildings sticking up that are going to, silhouette against the sky, are going to be these, eyesores for the community and for passersby. And I don't understand how one developer coming in can negate all of that planning that's been done across the county. And so urge you, pay attention to the details, please, so that I'm not against a winery, like I said, but community plans and so forth don't negate those things in order to give this developer what he wants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Patty Knifer. I'm a Penryn resident, and I'm hoping that you'll give a couple of community members the opportunity to meet with you before the 27th. I know we are going to be arranging a meeting with Commissioner DeMatte, and since this affects the rest of each of your districts with a countywide zoning ordinance, a very reserved meeting, so you can ask individual questions, would be requested. So I'll just leave my contact information with the secretary. I want to read a quote from the website that was from the previous CEDRA director. We're trying to strike a balance and providing clarity to the businesses so that they can succeed while making sure they operate as good neighbors in rural communities they call home. We support that 100%. This was on regarding the winery ordinance that was done a couple of years ago. We believe that Project 8 Winery is an example of language and abuse of the rules of that winery ordinance. Some of the things that you may not be aware of, the way the winery ordinance reads, and the abuses are unlimited number of events. Unlimited. So 75 people attending anything presented at a winery is an event. The developer says possibly 208 agricultural promotional events. It's unlimited. It can be any day of the week, in addition to the 12 special events, which have 200 or more people. Amplified music is allowed at every single one of those events outside, and any time until 8 o'clock at night, in a ridge, on top of a tower, on top of observation. This is going to go way too fast. A limited number of guests would be suggested. Food service is no longer an auxiliary use. It is the primary function, and a restaurant is open till 10 o'clock at night and can serve food to any of the guests at any location, including 6,000 square feet of outside eating area and observation areas. The noise isn't regulated correctly. The noise study needs to be redone. And what I'm suggesting is that you please read the thousands, it's going to be a lot, of materials that are presented, the hundreds of letters, and it's a lot to digest, and you have 2 weeks to do it. So I'm hoping you'll take advantage of a personal meeting with just a couple of people. We'll be very respectful, and good luck on this.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name's Ann Hendrickson. I live on Sicily Road. I've been living there for 40 plus years, and it's been a wonderful place to live. until now. So anyway, I'm going to speak about what's on your website regarding the Horseshoe Bar Penryn Community Plan. Can I do that since it's on the agenda? Okay, so anyway, since it's on your website and these are the policies in place that guide the development to preserve the rural integrity of the area. General community goals: ensure a balanced environment where physical development can occur with minimal adverse effect on the natural resources of the area. Protect and preserve the unique character of the community in rural areas. Maintain the identity of the plan area as scenic, tranquil, rural, residential community compatibility with the area's physical constraints and natural features. Conserve and protect the natural and cultural resources, the natural environment and open space of the area. Preserve the community's outstanding visual and aesthetic features, including significant vistas, oak woodlands, native grasslands, stream and riparian zones, wetland areas, and wildlife habitats, not to mention basin foothills and the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and local views, which are important to maintaining the community's rural identity. Manage the development of land so that it is treated as a limited resource rather than a productive to be maximized for economic gain. Policies: the visual impact of the structure shall be mitigated either through reduction of the building bulk and increased setbacks. Hillside structures shall be designed to step down the natural hillside in order to achieve a low building profile, minimizing grading. There is a need to preserve natural terrain. Largely bare slopes and sparsely wooded ridges visible from the large portions of the planning area should be kept free of structures to maximize the maximum extent possible. If development does take place on highly visible barren slopes, it must be unobtrusive and designed to maintain the character of the natural setting. This is from the Ridgeline Protection Policy. The county should require that all new development be designed to be compatible with the scale and character of the areas. Structures, especially those outside of village, urban, and commercial centers, should be designed and located so that they do not silhouette against the sky above the ridgelines or hilltops. Roof lines and vertical architectural features blend with and do not detract from the natural background or ridge outline. The general plan and ridgeline policy have been put in place for a reason: to preserve the rural nature of the area that we residents have moved here for. We count on the county to uphold these values.
Okay, could you wrap
Please.
it up now, please?
Pardon me?
Your time is up.
Oh, darn. Okay, please save the communities and other communities across Placer County from the nightmare we are facing. Thank you
thank
for
you.
your time. Sorry.
Anybody else? Okay, is there anybody online that would like to make a comment?
Hi, Muriel. Go ahead and unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Hello, this is Muriel Davis. And first, I want to agree with the planning director that a single email for the planning commission would be wonderful to have, just like we have a single email for the supervisors. Now, I'd like to comment about this Project 8 that's on the agenda for April 27th. I agree with all the public comments that have been presented so far. I ask you, the planning commissioners, to send the Project 8 back to the planning department and have them present this project, the CTA and the project, to all the MACs that have not yet been informed about the project and get their recommendations. It's awful that this county's wide ZTA has not been treated like previous ZTAs and be presented at all the MACs and as a separate item, separate from a project. This ZTA, in fact, it impacts all the entire county. And the Project 8 should not be allowed to violate the ridge protections that are in the community plan, and should not be allowed to create a commercial entertainment center with this tower under the guise of a winery accessory restaurant. And so I appreciate you letting me voice my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else?
Hi, Cheryl. You can unmute and begin making your comments. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. I attended the Design Review Committee meeting yesterday, and I was actually very concerned about several things that happened at that meeting. Staff did not present a summary of all of the public feedback that had been provided for both the EIR and for the ZTA meeting. There should have been some summary to give the Design Review Committee an idea of what the public was thinking. That was not done. Then the legal counsel that was there, Eric Broomfield, actually said that the purpose for the Design Review Committee was to recommend the project. And I raised my hand and said, it would be to recommend or not recommend. So I feel like there was some leading from council to the committee. He also stated that there couldn't be any conditions or comments put on the project. And I thought that is like a form of censorship for the Development Review Committee. I think it was inappropriate for legal to state that. The Development Review Committee looked like deer in the headlights. They said nothing. They asked no questions after the entire presentation. I thought that was shameful that we have, like, it was like staged. I wanted to get to also the rushed and biased and incomplete process. This planning commission actually, after almost 10 years, we had an EIR, and at the last moment, a special CUP process was put in place without being included in the EIR. The EIR had large wineries. That should have been part of the EIR, not a new CUP process. So the environmental report, I think, is incomplete and needed. It's inconsistent with the general plan, and ZTA does not have any environmental process associated with it. So I think that's a severe miscalculation that it hasn't even been measured. Also, the staff report assumes that the EIR will be certified and that the ZTA will be approved. It's like putting the cart before the horse. Why would you have something on the agenda and not have the appropriate mechanisms to implement the project? I also asked legal about the inconsistency with where is the code that allows an applicant to push a process through when it's inconsistent with the general plan. I have not heard back yet, and the planner actually stated that county code allows that. If county code allows that, then please provide the code that allows this applicant to circumvent an application process. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much, and I hope you will meet with some of the residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No more? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on the items that are not on the agenda today. And now we will move to the consent agenda.
Rich, if I could make just a couple of comments about some of the comments that were made real quickly.
Yeah,
I can
it's not on the agenda.
step in real quick on this. It's not listed on the agenda. You will be hearing it on the 27th. You can provide a brief response, but since it's not listed on the agenda, that's what you're limited to.
Okay. Well, actually, this was, the reason I'm fairly comfortable with this is it was actually part of the public record because it was submitted in writing. And this gets to actually several of the comments that were made here. And so this was submitted actually kind of out of, it's actually appropriate for Project 8, but it was submitted early and became part of the public record. So the thing that I want to address.
Well, just a minute. Are we? Yeah, I think we're going to have a discussion and a hearing on this on the 27th.
Right.
And so maybe we should withhold our comments now until after the public hearing.
Yeah, it's not, it's a comment about something that was submitted to this commission. And I understand what you're saying, and I'm sensitive to it.
We did have the draft document that was reviewed by the commission.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that, we're gonna still be receiving comments from the public.
Okay.
And so I guess what I would say is we need to wait to the next hearing, and then we'll hear from the full public at that time, as well as all the comments been made on the record this time. And at that time, we can have some deliberation, consideration after that's done. So
Right.
for now, I'd say let's hold it.
Let me ask council a question. This was submitted as a matter of public record to us about 4 days ago. May I comment on that?
So the area that you're limited to in terms of commenting are those items that are listed on the agenda. So even if somebody submits a letter on a different topic, that's not something that we can engage in a deliberation or discussion about. If there is a topic that somebody submits something on the commission would like to discuss, you can, during one of these meetings, suggest that it be put on an agenda for discussion. But the reason you're limited in that
Fair enough.
discussion is that the public may have an interest in that topic and may want to provide comments and discuss it. And if they're not aware that that item is going to be heard and discussed, they don't have that opportunity to do so.
Okay, I defer to council and the chair. One quick comment, though, regarding, I am glad to meet with anyone on any issue, so please send a request to the clerk, and I'll do what I can to be there.
Okay. well-
That was I had a procedural question.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple more questions.
Just
remember, this is public comment. It's not on the agenda.
Where we did have an offer to reach for the public to meet with them. And I just want to make sure that we're going to get that contact information. So do we have that in process already? Has your contact information already been accepted? Do we have that where we can get a hold of you?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'll follow up.
Thank you.
I just had a quick procedural question. If there are in fact hundreds of letters coming in, if we could get them as they're coming in so we could read them and not get 200, if there are in fact 200, a couple days before, that would just be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's a good comment. And let me see, I might mention, I have 2 people that have requested that I meet with them, and I'm willing to do that. But one of the things that my normal process would be is I'd like to see the staff report. And so the week that we're going to have the meeting, then we have the staff report, then I will be more than willing to meet with anybody. Okay, thank you.
Do you also have access to, my comment, I ask that you have access to the recording of the PTA workshop that was held on the 5th. Can you get that?
I think we will have access to all that information before the hearing. And so, we really just can't have people making comments from the audience. Everybody has had a chance to make their comments at this point. And so, all the information that has been sent in to the planning department, all the discussions at the MAC meetings, release the results of the MAC meetings, as well as the ZTA meeting, will be available to all the planning commissioners. So hopefully that answers your question.
Chair Johnson, if I may,
Yeah.
just to provide a piece of information, given the question that came up. The ZTA information from the town hall meeting, the information, the PowerPoint presentation, as well as the recording of the meeting is on the Project 8 webpage. And so any member of the public, as well as the commissioners, can access it prior to the hearing. And we will make sure to include a link to it with the report package as well. So just wanted to close that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll, I guess we've already closed the public comments. So at this time, we have a consent agenda item. And it's just basically, I believe,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda item. Are you going to ask if the public wants to?
well, is
pull
there
it?
anybody that wants to pull the
Yeah,
consent agenda?
I don't.
In the audience or online?
I'll second that if we can go ahead with the first.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll second the consent agenda. Approval.
Okay, roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner Herzog and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers? Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And so now we'll move on to our first timed item, which is basically the Placer County General Plan. And I guess Chris is going to make an early presentation on this.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're all welcome to stick around if you would like to find out about the process for the general plan.
Thank you. Well, Commissioners, again, Chris Bahuli, Planning Director. It's my pleasure to provide some introductory comments on this item. Chris Schmidt from the Planning Department will be doing the presentation, but again, my pleasure to provide some introductory remarks, and also very excited to be getting started with the process to update the Placer County General Plan. Late last year, the Board of Supervisors heard a presentation from the CEDRA Director as well as planning staff about the need to update the Placer County General Plan, which hasn't been comprehensively updated in nearly 30 years, and provided direction to begin the process of a major update. This update is going to be a significant part of the work program for the Planning Division over the next several years. And although a large amount of that work is going to be done by Planning Services staff, we will be bringing on a consultant to assist with its preparation. One of the first steps in the process is to solicit proposals. And we're going to be going to the board for their input on the draft scope of work in June before releasing that solicitation. However, before we get to the board hearing, planning staff wanted to provide a presentation to the Planning Commission with background on the general plan and the need for the update, as well as solicit input on the draft scope of work. So with that introduction, I'm going to have Chris Schmidt come up and provide the presentation to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Pahuli, and good morning, Commissioners. Chris Schmidt with the Planning Services Division. As the Planning Director pointed out, this is a once-in-a-generational project for planning staff. It's been a long time since we've looked at our general plan comprehensively. So just going through some basics of general plans. They're unique in California. California law requires each municipality to have a general plan. It's in Government Code Section 65300. The plans must be comprehensive, integrated, internally consistent with compatible policies. There must be development policies with land use maps. And the state actually provides municipalities guidelines that each general plan must contain. And those were last updated in 2017, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So what is the general plan? So preparing, adopting, and implementing and maintaining the general plan serves a number of purposes. It identifies the community's land use, circulation, environmental, economic, social goals and policies as they relate to land use and development. It provides a basis for local decision-making, not only for you, but for the board, and MAC members and the public, including decisions on development approvals and exactions. It provides our citizens with opportunities to participate in the planning and decision-making processes for their individual communities. It informs citizens, developers, decision-makers like yourselves, and others of the ground rules that guide development within unincorporated Placer County. The general plan bridges the gap between community values, visions, and objectives, and physical decisions such as subdivisions and other projects. So our general plan is really our vision for the future. It's our public document that explains what we hope and value, or hope for the future and what we value. It guides each county department with their strategic goal and policy setting. It's our basis for land use decisions and growth management policies. It guides our physical appearance, and it allows for accountable implementation. So the 94 general plan has served us well. At the time of adoption, we envisioned it to last for 10 to 20 years, and here we are almost 30 years later, with the general plan really out of date. So a few projects that you all know about have resulted from that 94 plan. So the Bickford Ranch project, that area was designated for future growth. That project was approved in 2004, 1,900 acres with almost 1,900 units. Construction is currently underway on the first phase of that project. Placer Vineyards as well. It was a specific plan area. It was approved in 2007 for almost 15,000 units. The first homes are under construction and occupied today. Also, the Placer Legacy Program was our agricultural and open space preservation program that was a direct result of the 94 general plan. So that was kicked off in 2000. Without that plan, you wouldn't have Spears or Hidden Falls Regional Park and other park projects and other conservation projects throughout Placer County. And of course, one of the big implementation programs for the 94 plan was the Placer County Conservation Program. Took us a number of years to put in place, but it was adopted in September of 2020. It has a 50-year term with the goal of preserving 47,300 acres of Western Placer habitat lands. So we did conduct a general plan update. It was really a policy review. This was done in 2013. We updated antiquated code references, streets, diagrams, and policies. We incorporated a few things the state was looking for in general plans, including complete streets policies, added best management practices. We also added a disadvantaged communities discussion. What we did not change back then in 2013 was any land use designations, no rezoning. The land use diagram remained static, and we also didn't touch the capital improvement program. So what has changed? A number of things have changed over the last 30 years. There's been significant growth in Placer County. There's been a number of land use changes that you've seen. Infrastructure needs have changed, sewer, water, roadways, et cetera. Housing affordability is a huge problem in Placer County and elsewhere in California. Our conditions and priorities have changed. There's been a slew of new state laws, particularly regarding to housing. Our sustainability plan was adopted a couple years ago, and of course the PCCP was completed, which really sets where future development is going to happen in the county, as you can see on the map on the slide. So why update? We need to set a new vision. So our current plan is admittedly dated. We need to address current opportunities, challenges, and trends. Our perspectives on land use and environmental issues have changed over the years. There's been significant changes to demographics and the economic environment since '94, including significant population growth. Our opportunity to connect with the community and reaffirm values and priorities is a big part of the general plan update. There's also been changes to state law on how communities address housing, mobility, climate change, and environmental justice. So in 2017, the state did update the required general plan contents, and you see those listed there. Our current plan does touch on all these items, but it doesn't do a real thorough job in addressing what the state wants us to look at in our general plan. So the state does tell us the items that must be discussed, and those are your elements, land use circulation, the housing element, which is a unique chapter of the general plan, conservation, open space, noise, safety, environmental justice, and also air quality. So we are embarking on a 4 to 5 year work program to update the general plan. We're calling it 2050 general plan. We've started some background work last year, doing some data collection and laying the groundwork for our scope of work. We would formally kick off the program this year if the board approves, starting work in September. It would include land use changes, which is a biggie. We'll also look at community plan consolidation, which I'll talk about. There will be an EIR required, and of course, the zoning ordinance and rezonings. So the zoning ordinance would be logically updated to comply with the new general plan. So that would be at the end of the process. So one of the things the state is pushing communities to look at is a healthy community plan. So well-being is woven throughout each chapter of the general plan with the overall goal of improving public health and supporting the natural and built environment. So as you know, everything's entwined in life: land use, design, transportation decisions. They all have impacts on local air quality, water quality and supply, traffic safety, and physical activity. So this is a holistic look at everything the county does, and what we support and what we approve should benefit the public in some way. And this is what that looks like with a chart. So all these items are factors in a healthy community. So for example, the goal of promoting physical activity can be a strong rationale for encouraging mixed-use communities where people can walk and bike to work and school and to shop. Likewise, identifying the many healthy benefits of green spaces may add to priority of the goals of the open space and recreation element. So everything works together. So the scope of the process of a general plan update. So we really need to pin down the scope of our work program. And the first step in that, for a community of this size, with multiple distinct communities, ranging from agricultural areas to the Tahoe Basin, there's numerous anticipated focus topics, and we need to establish an achievable scope. So what is the focus of the update? Which policy guidance is most crucial to allow our communities to thrive? How do we best protect and cultivate what we value? So to build broad acceptance of the general plan, a significant public outreach program is being proposed. So the scope that's attached to your staff report is about 36 pages currently. It's still being worked on. It's 13 individual tasks. Most of these will be done by a consultant or a consultant team. Of course, county staff will have a role in this, and also the planning commissions and others will have various roles as we roll this out. So community plan consolidation has been a big topic internally and out in the community. We currently have 15 community plans. Is it appropriate for a county of this size? It remains to be seen. But as you can see here, we have some community plans that are almost 50 years old, 55 years old. So Alpine Meadows, 1968. And we've been averaging a community plan update maybe 2 every 10 years. So if you do the math, we're only looking at these things every 20 or 30 years, which isn't really ideal. So we have done some recently, the Tahoe Basin Area Plan in 2017 and the Sunset Area Plan in 2019. So what we're going to be looking at are a number of options for these community plans. Do we exclude them, just leave them be, don't touch them, don't incorporate them or fold them into the general plan? Do we eliminate them? Are they so obsolete and there's no development happening in some of these areas that we just delete them and let the general plan policies and land use diagrams cover those communities? Do we include them as an appendix or a sub-area plan to the general plan or a community area plan? We don't know what they're called. In our scope, we're calling them sub-area plans. So these would be existing community plans, updated. They're not a standalone document anymore. They're appendix to the general plan. We could add some new sub-area plans for one or more areas of the county. We also could have a standalone plan, not part of the general plan, that could be coming out of our board discussions, or a new specific plan area. So that remains to be decided. So the sub-area plans are really recognizing that there's many unique areas of Placer County. These sub-area plans would be written with help from the local community, and they'd be a key element in maintaining stable land use patterns in the county. So each sub-area plan would have area-specific issues identified. It would include a land use update, so rezonings. We'd have community-specific policies. For instance, Granite Bay has very strong language about where gated communities are allowed. And we'd have community-specific design guidelines for each of those sub-areas. And of course, community outreach is integral to a community plan process. The plan needs input and review by those most affected, and those are our residents. We're looking at a whole wide range of public outreach efforts. As you can see here, we'll be having those discussions with the consultant team of how best to roll it out, but it'll be every means possible to get word out to the community and get involvement as much as possible. Public input would be at every stage of the effort. As you can see, there's 3 levels of decision-making. The Board of Supervisors, we would include the board for decisions and direction, the Planning Commission for advisory and guidance, and then technical assistance by 4 working groups, and we'll talk about each of those. In each level, you can see public input is intertwined at all stages. The county working group would be an internal working group of county staff to provide direction on goals, policies, and other items that's in the scope of work. It's really going to be all hands on deck. As you can see, these are the various departments and probably some others that I missed that would be involved in some role in the general plan update. The General Plan Advisory Committee is most likely going to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors. They'll decide how many and who. It could be 15, 20, 30 people, hopefully with a broad cross-section of public and others that are interested in various elements that are part of a general plan update. Of course, we'll be going out to the MACs, especially if we do the sub-area plans. The MACs will have a critical role in deciding what's best for their community. In each sub-area plan, we anticipate we'll have a working group. So that could be either a MAC subcommittee, it could be the MAC itself, or it could just be an open door policy where anyone in the public can join in on those scheduled probably monthly or bi-monthly meetings to talk about general plan update items of interest. And of course, the Planning Commission will have a very significant role in the general plan update. So we'll be looking at development of the vision and guiding principles, alternatives preparation and review. Later sessions will include a detailed analysis and discussion of each general plan element goal, policy and action program, and review of the sub-area plans. In the scope, we've listed 10 check-ins with the Planning Commission. Each of these check-ins will have a public input and availability of public comment. So next steps, we are refining the work plan and scope, looking for feedback from the commission on what we're proposing. We're going to start doing early visits to the MACs. So starting next month, we'll start going to each of the MACs. Basically the same presentation of here's what's coming, here's how you can get involved. We'll be going to the Board of Supervisors to approve the scope of work. We'll refine that and ask the board, does this look good? We're scheduled for June 13th for that. Once they give us the blessing, which we anticipate or hope for, we'll release the RFP the following day, give firms about 6 weeks to submit proposals. We'll do some interviews with a panel of county staff and make a recommendation of a preferred consultant, go back to the board at end of September, seeking authorization to sign a contract, and we would start work on this lengthy effort in October. We do have a early general plan update website. The address is kind of convoluted, but this is the address here. We also have a sign up so folks can get their name on an interest list, and we'll be emailing notices for meetings when documents are available, etc. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple of questions. Are you anticipating having a sole vendor be the prime contractor for all of those 13 tasks? And then they may have sub vendors for like the EIR and things like that?
Yeah. So typically it's a consultant team. There'll be a primary planning consultant. Right. Sometimes they bring in an EIR consultant. Yeah. They'll bring in economics expert, traffic consultants, EIR consultants. So it'll be an umbrella, but it'll be a primary with a bunch of subs.
Have you looked at any of the RFPs from other counties that have recently done a general plan update, especially with all the legislative changes? Yeah.
And that's why we're at 36-page scope. But there's two approaches. You either tell the folks exactly what you want them to do.
Right.
We've also seen some where it's very short and it says, hey, consultants, tell us how to update our general plan and what it's going to cost. Right. So we took the more detailed approach because we want to really pin down what that number is going to be.
Sure. On your evaluation committee for the proposals, when they come in 6 weeks after mid-June, you said it was county staff?
Yes.
Do you have any desire to have any planning commissioners on that evaluation committee? Or talk about it amongst yourselves?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can evaluate and
think about it.
It's a good idea.
out. I did want to just follow up on one of the questions that you asked as well about the consultant team. As Chris mentioned, we are including in the scope of work, draft scope of work, the zoning ordinance update as well. We are envisioning that the consultant team that we would select would carry out that work as well at the completion of the general plan. But that is something that we're looking at as maybe perhaps being an optional task and something that we may use that consultant or may decide to pivot away from that consultant team if we think that's
if you do list it in your RFP as a supplemental piece, then know that they're going to take up the whole budget for the other 12 pieces and that you'll have to fund that other piece separately because they will use that.
That's right.
For the whole thing. Also on the General Plan Advisory Committee, who did you envision being on that?
It's really up to the board. It'll be it'll be members of the public. They won't be, it could be appointed officials, but not county appointed officials.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I do have a few, and first of all, my apologies for that. I thought I had it on silent, so my mistake. I apologize for that. Chris, I have a couple of questions and a couple of suggestions. Frankly, it's such a long-term process that it almost seems like this workshop will somewhat get lost in the shuffle of, a four-year process to get this accomplished, but perhaps not. Just a couple of questions, I guess. First of all, on the update to or potential consolidation of community plans, do you have any idea at this point how that process to reach a decision would unfold? In other words, who's going to be involved in that discussion to lay out the potential recommendations for community plan consolidation?
That's good. That's a really good question. So we're going to lean on the consultant to kind of have a scoring system to look at the existing plans. Are they obsolete? Are they still useful? How much work needs to be done? Or are they new and really impossible to fold into a general plan? For instance, the Tahoe Basin Area Plan is so specific to Tahoe. It would be in just how they analyze and the land uses and the sub areas. It would be really difficult to make that a sub-area plan in the general plan. So that might be one that might be off the table early. So we'll be looking at feedback from the MACs and the community of, do we want to be part of the general plan? Eventually, it'll be Planning Commission making a recommendation and then the board deciding which gets folded and which doesn't. So the key to the community, and I know we've already heard from some folks, is they're fearing they're going to lose their identity. And we'll talk about Granite Bay, for instance. If we're a sub-area, are we no longer Granite Bay? We don't have our own 150-page community plan. And I think the answer to that is no, because you'll have those specific goals and policies and opportunity areas and design guidelines for Granite Bay. And the benefit of being part of the general plan is the general plan is going to be on a routine update cycle. So we'll be looking at that every 15, 20 years, hopefully 10. Whereas the community plan, it'd be updated every 20, 30 years. So there is a benefit of having that frequent update and a recheck on community plan policies.
Okay. I have to admit, this shouldn't surprise anybody, but I was educated once again by some of the staff comments or staff report that you put together, so I appreciate that. How do we currently do community plan updates? And the reason I'm asking this is obviously we've got some that are ancient. And so somebody thought they were a good idea, and yet they have not been, in my judgment. You could look at this and say, we as a county have not been properly resourcing the update to these plans. That is one way to look at this argument. I'm not saying we shouldn't consolidate. Frankly, we probably should. But how is it that we've gotten to this point? In other words, how are these community plans typically resourced and completed? What process is in place right now for that?
It's really a board decision with input from the public and the planning department of which areas are experiencing so much change that the community plan is no longer useful to the community and to the decision makers. So the Sunset Area Plan, there was a big push to, job creation. The area plan, there's so much change around the Sunset area. There was time for an update. We also piggybacked the Placer Ranch specific plan with that document. The Tahoe Basin Area Plan was such a mess of, I think there was 4 community plans. We consolidated those, so that was a big push, which also was driven by a need for redevelopment of the town centers. So that drove that process. So it's really a political and public decision of which is their priority. Sheridan was updated about 3 years ago, and that was more of this area has got so much potential, but not a lot of potential for growth. And the board decided that we would do an in-house update to the Sheridan Community Plan.
Well, I guess what I would say is this. That list that you put out there, in my view, makes us look kind of inept as a county with regards to planning. And so I think what the board needs to understand ultimately is that when we go ahead and consolidate and establish a set of community plans, we've made that commitment to properly fund and update those over the course of the next whatever number of years we're going to keep this thing in place. In other words, we should not allow ourselves to, go to 1968. The board should not only commit to doing this, they should commit the resources necessary to keep these things current, right?
Or they decide not to do it.
Or-
That's one of the things that are on the
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can consolidate this and get this to something that's usable for the next set of years, rather than just allow them to become, useless, which is really what's happened here. Okay, a couple other questions.
Well, yeah, let's kind of hold ourselves to questions at this point.
Why is that?
I'll just add about, the old plans. So some of these areas have very little development. There's been no need to update them. We also, I think, are a little gun shy because some of our community plan updates have gotten sued. So it's a process. It's very expensive, a lot of staff time. We're busy with current planning, so there hasn't been a huge focus on the long-range planning. So I think that kind of explains of how we've gotten so far behind on some of these. And some of them they may be old, but they're still pretty good, to be honest.
Okay. So the community plan is required by law. Is compliance with the community plan also required by law? In other words, or not community plan, sorry, general plan. So when we establish this general plan, is it a legal document that's required? So the county must be compliant.
We had to find consistency with the general plan, and then each community plan must be consistent with the general plan.
Okay. So would it be correct to say that in your experience, and I would assume in Chris's experience and other planning directors' experience, that Placer County has been compliant with the general plan since the current general plan, since it has been in existence?
And we have done periodic updates to sections as the state laws have changed. And of course, the housing element is unique that it has to be updated every 8 years. The state recommends general plans be updated every 10 years. So we're a little bit behind. I should have pointed out that one of the reasons why we didn't do the comprehensive update in 2014 or 2013 was because the PCCP was still in the works, and we wanted to align the general plan with the PCCP map. So the state was pounding on the door saying, Placer County, you need to update your general plan. We convinced them that, well, it doesn't make sense until the PCCP is adopted. PCCP is adopted, and now it's a big priority for the board.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Something that I should mention
Thank you,
really
Chair.
quickly, since we have the slide up on the existing community plans. I believe the commission is aware, but we are currently in the process of updating the Auburn-Bowman Community Plan. That effort has been initiated. It is being worked on currently, and will make its way to the Planning Commission at some point fairly soon. So I wanted to point that out as well.
And if I could just add one comment too, to touch on Commissioner Woodward's question about compliance with the general plan. That is something that your Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors does with each project. Each project that comes in, one of those findings is a recommendation that it is consistent with the general plan. So part of your findings that you're doing for each of those projects is a consistency determination, and staff usually provides a recommendation that it is, but ultimately it's the Planning Commission and the board that make that call.
Thank you. I just had two quick questions related to the Tahoe area. So the first question I had is, when you talk about the Tahoe area or regional plan, is that ridgetop, is that the definition of the basin?
It's that area in green, so the basin is defined by anything that the watershed flows to the lake. So it's really the ridge top around Lake Tahoe.
And the other question is, I'm trying to understand the interaction of this general plan update with the Tahoe Basin Regional Plan effort by our TRPA. I think that's underway right now, or is going to be.
So there are some amendments to the Tahoe Basin Area Plan currently being reviewed. So that should be coming back to the commission in coming months.
And that would be a responsibility of ours to review and approve and consider, I guess.
Yeah, so those amendments will come to the Planning Commission. I believe we were looking at those November, I think it came to the commission, and there was no action taken, and it's being revised and will be back before you before it goes to the board. So with this being a 5-year effort, if they decide to fold the Basin Plan into the general plan, it'll at least give us 5 years of revised policies, mostly focused on encouraging housing construction and town center redevelopment.
I'm trying to conceive of how that would work with 4 counties, 2 states.
So our Tahoe Basin Area Plan only covers the Placer County portion.
Okay.
So that plan also needs to be approved by TRPA. So they do have a level of authority on our community plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got a couple. Thanks, Chris, great presentation. I'm glad you're leading us through this. I'm glad we have more time than we did for redistricting. So that's good. I think, who do you anticipate will be the applicant? Because I think the commission should hear who's going to be recommending as an applicant.
The county itself is the applicant.
Yeah, so that's unusual, and we need to be aware of that. And then can you go to slide 21? So this, I know it doesn't need to be spelled out, but which of those does education fit in?
I guess it would be healthy economy and social cohesion?
Okay. Because I know it doesn't need to be specifically spelled out in the general plan, but I think we need to be conscious of that.
Yeah, good point.
So I'll be looking at that. Okay. And then the community plan questions I think were addressed. So I'm good, Chairman.
Okay, is that it on the questions? Okay, I just have one. And it was mentioned that the Auburn-Bowman plan is currently going to be working at the same time as this. And what the Auburn-Bowman plan really does is looks at a zone of influence that really goes out into the county quite a ways. And so I guess my question is, how does that interface, or any other city that, you know, does a zone of influence, how does that interface with this particular process?
So the city of Auburn does have some sphere of influence in North Auburn. So they really don't have an official role in that update, but we expect they'll have comment on any changes being proposed.
Okay, thank you. Is that it for questions? Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and open it for public comment. Is there anybody in the room here that would have a public comment? Thank you for coming
Hi,
forward.
I'm Patty Neifer. I'm glad I got to stay for this. We did see it in November. While I think maybe consolidation in some plans is really needed, I just want to make one caution. The workshops and the pop-ups and things like that that involve the community are utmost important. If I just give the example of the workshop on the zoning text amendment for countywide Placer County height exemption for the wineries, you had 22 people attend the Zoom-only meeting. Only two max were represented, and the rest of the 13 did not know about the meeting. So I'm glad to hear the kinds of outreach that are planned by the county to get some community input, because it really should be a representation of the residents. So thank you for including that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Hi, my name is Linda Kaplan, and I'm a fairly new resident to Placer County. I moved here in 2018. And I came to the workshop because this is the best way to find out what's going on in the community and to learn. I'm very impressed by all of you. I am an ex-Contra Costa and San Ramon Valley Planning Commissioner, and you have a big undertaking. It will take a while, but your general plan is the blueprint for development. And staff has given a very great review, and I look forward to going to and attending these workshops with you. Thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you.
It's me again, Ann Hendrickson. Anyway, I was listening to Chris Schmidt, and it was a very good presentation.
Could you talk into the microphone a little closer?
Oops. Ann Hendrickson.
You can bend it down.
Ann Hendrickson, Penryn. I was listening to Chris Schmidt and his presentation. It was very interesting. Did I hear him say the general plan is legally required? That's my question. I don't know if you can answer it, but listening to him, I heard that and I thought, okay, if it's legally required, maybe the previous general plan is legally required as well. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you. Is that it for the audience? Okay, anybody online?
Hi, Cheryl. Go ahead and unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments.
All right, thank you, Chris Schmidt. Awesome presentation as usual. We expect nothing less from you. I had a couple questions. One, the director actually mentioned solicit proposals. I hope that the MAC presentations will include that because I think several of us are interested. You also used the phrase accountable implementation. My concern with community plans is we've had several what we call loopholes in our plans that allow for things like group homes and do you need a state license and let's change the zoning so that we can put something in commercial that things of that nature. So I'm concerned about that. Also, there's also a language that's used often that says, well, community plans aren't really like law, so we can get around that by using something in the general plan. So I think that's been two consistent themes in our community plans that we're very concerned about. Also, on one of the slides that you had the slide that had all the check marks with exclude and things that would qualify basically a sub-area plan. I didn't see anything that said as an option, leave them alone / update them. So I would hope that that is an option that we want for example, our Granite Bay Community Plan. It's been in for years with a ton of community input. Lots of people spent years updating it. So I would hope that that would be presented as an option for the community to preserve that plan. I also wanted to comment on Commissioner Herzog's comment that it was unusual. What is the usual process for who was normally the applicant and why isn't that being used? Because there's a lot of community concern about the Sunset Area Plan with the county being the applicant. A lot of concern that the developer was basically leading the county down the path. And so I would like to know what that plan is and who is normally the applicant and how that would normally take place. Because I think it should be an option potentially, or the residents should be informed. Thank you for including us in this process. And we look forward to the MAC presentations. Thanks again, Chris. Great job.
Okay, well, thank you. And any questions, we'll give Chris an opportunity after the public comments close to address anything that he felt was a question that needs to be addressed. Let me see, is there anybody else online?
Yes. Hi, Michelle. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Michelle Bass, and I'm a resident of Rockland. I wanted to offer comment on the general plan update scope regarding our Placer County library system and ensuring equity for all of our residents in the service area. Our general plan currently includes 2 sentences concerning the library, and it reads, "The county shall ensure that library facilities are provided to current and future residents in the unincorporated area. The county shall also require new development to fund its fair share of library facilities." Conversely, our public recreation and parks are well represented in the general plan by 7 pages of goals and guidelines with expectations of amenities to be provided for 1,000 residents. Documents such as this endeavor to achieve equity for all Placer County residents and gives us concrete goals, a way to measure our success and a vision to strive for. In September of 2022, the Library Administration presented an updated library services study to the Board of Supervisors, which would be a foundational document for establishing what I'm asking for. Over the last decade, our library system has been the subject of several grand jury reports, and I believe in part due to the fact that we do not have policies enforce directing the library system in providing equitable library service as we do with our public recreation and parks. This is not an uncommon practice, and several of our Placer County cities have in their general plans a starting point for us where we could see exactly what I'm requesting in reference to libraries. I would encourage you to recommend that your professional planning staff work with library administration and the Placer County Library Advisory Board to accomplish this. I echo the term that Mr. Schmidt used in his presentation, accountable implementation, and that is exactly what I'm looking for on behalf of residents and library users. And with this general plan update, we have the opportunity to enshrine these goals, guidelines, and metrics by which we ensure we are providing equitable library service for all of our current and future residents. Thanks for your consideration and for the excellent staff presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I guess that's it for the public comment, so I'll go ahead and close that. And then, Chris, would you like to address any further questions?
Please. So staff completely agrees with Patty that public outreach is needed, every effort available to us, and some that we may not even know about. We're going to leave it up to the consultant team to lead us in our public outreach activities. The zoning loopholes, it's really not going to be up to the general plan to close those, but it would be in the general or the zoning ordinance update. That would be at the end of the process to get the consistency between the adopted general plan and our main implementation tool, which is our zoning ordinance. Of course, there has to be general plan, community plan consistency. The community plan can have stronger language than required in the general plan. It can't have lesser language. So if the general plan says, for instance, 50-foot setback from streams, the community plans can't say 20-foot setback. It has to be 50, but it could be 100, so it could be stronger. Leave alone and update as an option. We will add that to the list for the board to consider. Practically speaking, with our limited resources, it's going to be very difficult to do simultaneous general plan update and a standalone community plan update, but that'll be a board decision. Is it legally required? It is. The state asks us not only to have a general plan adopted, but also to give them an annual report on our implementation of the general plan. Totally agree about the libraries. Our existing general plan does not have very strong language and requirements, so we'll definitely reach out to the library board, and also that study that the service study the library conducted will feed into the general plan update, so we'll be looking to get copies of that. Any other comments, questions?
Question. Go ahead.
I don't have questions, but I have comments. We're there, right?
Oh, yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, we're beyond the public, so
Perfect.
we can deliberate.
Mr. Schmidt, great presentation. I know all the work that's gone in ahead of time just to get to here to where we start to engage and work with the community, and I'm looking forward to participating and being a part of that. And I know that you do a really good job of letting the community know when the workshops are and what times and places, and I just appreciate what we're about to begin.
It's daunting, but I think we're up to it.
Okay, we're open for any questions or comments this time if you want, Meg.
Just a couple of quick follow-ups, Chris. This is really similar to, in some ways, what Commissioner Herzog mentioned with regards to education. As I read through things, and I kind of reflected back on the last couple of years, it seems that one of the things that we really have some issues with, potentially this could go to 2050 or so, is water transfer and water storage and water in general. We have this tremendous push to continue to build, and yet, on the other hand, we have now got recently federal guidance and thoughts about what's going to affect significantly Southern California, potentially with regards to, Lake Mead and other resources. And so where in this plan, and I did not see it in the current general plan, so where in this plan will those types of questions be answered or addressed in your view?
So one of the tasks would be a water supply assessment that the consultant would have to work with the supplying agencies, NID, PCWA, on that effort. Also, I lost my train of thought. So each of the alternatives will also be analyzed in the EIR. So one of the questions will be, is there enough water supply and other infrastructure to support the alternative that's being proposed. So we're looking, probably there'll be 3 alternatives analyzed in the EIR, and then a preferred alternative also
A preferred alternative to what?
for the land use plan and the general plan. So if there's land use changes, what is the preferred basket of changes that's going to be proposed in the general plan?
Okay. All right, thanks.
Go ahead.
Just one, will the EIR focus on the changes from the existing general plan and how those impacts are measured? Is that the approach that the EIR will take?
So it'll be a programmatic EIR and it'll look at the proposed new programs and existing, what it's going to look like 20, 30 years from now. So it'll look at what does this change out in daily life.
Okay.
It's hard to wrap your head around analyzing environmental impacts 20, 30 years from now, because there's so much change. We don't know what electric vehicles, self-driving vehicles are going to do. So it'll be very flexible. It'll be a working document, obviously.
And if I could just add to that, when you conducted an EIR, that first step is the notice of preparation, and that notice of preparation, when that gets sent out, actually sets the baseline for it. So you would be looking at a baseline of the existing general plan, what's allowed in it, and then you're looking at anything that changes from that to be evaluated.
Okay.
Anything else?
In the specific plans for each community, for example, I found out this morning that Roseville is working with PCWA to put underground water storage for the city of Roseville, since they're, I guess, their own municipality as well. So will the general plan take into consideration that for county use or more storage? In the PCWA and all those water sources were funded by private public money back in the day in the 60s. Is there something that will be implemented in here to store water that's released that they can't keep because of the snow melt that's going to come? And I found out that the lakes, the reservoirs that hold our water now, there's enough snowpack up there to fill them 3 times. So the concern is, from a lot of people, is letting that water back into the ocean. We are pumping it back into the ground in certain areas, but will there be something in the general plan to help store more water for county residents?
Everything's on the table is my generic answer. The county is also undertaking a groundwater assessment. I don't know the technical study, but also looking at ways and policies that the county can use to support groundwater recharge. So one of the things we're now looking at in some of our larger projects that have they have to do stormwater management or ponding on site, of how do we design that so that, not that it holds it and then releases it, but holds it and lets it sink into the ground. So I think there's a holistic look at groundwater supply, not only in Placer, but statewide. And that's a state mandate that we have to prepare these plans. And we'll fold those recommendations into the general plan.
Yeah, and maybe just to follow up on that, I mean, individual projects per se likely won't be evaluated as part of the general plan. I mean, it really is going to be a larger policy document. There will be policies likely related to water storage and water quality and so forth, and PCWA will certainly be a participant working with us in the development of the general plan, but it really will lay out policies that then will be carried through specific projects. And as you're aware, with analyzing various projects, we'll be then evaluating projects that come before you for consistency with that general plan policy.
I have a question. You were talking about the specific plans and how they can go further as long as they're in alignment with the general plan. I'm talking specifically just about housing development and all the new legislation that's already been passed and all the new legislation that's coming down that waters down a lot of those standards from the subjective standard to the objective, where it's really baselining and making these things much more consistent, or trying to make things much more consistent. Are you going to be taking all of those new housing legislation components and all those objective standards and subjective standards into consideration in the agreement?
As best we can, but there's also state law that makes you change things immediately or short term. So the package of the housing ZTAs that were done last summer, a lot of those were in response to state laws. They say you must do X, Y, and Z. Those have to be done right away. They're usually zoning amendments, but in that package, it was also a general plan amendment because we had to change some of our density limitations based on what now we have to allow as far as housing density on some of our like medium density or high density sites.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I do have one comment. I come at this from a forestry aspect. And the county is very rapidly becoming urbanized, but there still is a considerable amount of acreage up in the middle and eastern county that is zoned TPZ. And, I hope as we look forward into the next few years with the general plan that we provide some clear policies on what the purpose of TPZ is and an explanation of what it means and what are some of the processes that people can follow. Because it's still an important aspect of providing forest products, and there is quite a bit of private land that's dedicated to that now. So that would be my comment. Okay, is that it? Okay, hopefully, does that give you some help, or?
Nope.
At least you did a very good job, Chris, so we appreciate that.
We'll be back often.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so next time, for the next item, we're going to move on to the planning commissioners. Several of us attended a commissioner academy down in Southern California. And so, staff, you wanted to make some preliminary comments?
Sure, I can make a couple of initial comments, I guess, to get the ball rolling. Yes, as you mentioned, 5 of the 7 members, as well as myself, Clayton Cook, and CEDRA Director David Kwong attended the League of California Cities Planning Commissioner Academy down in Southern California in Orange County from March 29th through the 31st. I thought that there were a number of very interesting sessions that we all attended, particularly surrounding topics of streamlining of housing projects and development standards. Also, some good sessions I thought on effective meeting management and kind of an update on CEQA cases that were relevant to planning projects. I did want to offer up maybe a couple of nuggets, at least from planning staff's perspective, that I took away from the training. One, heard comments about ensuring that there was a refresh and review of Planning Commission's rules of procedures or bylaws, if there were some. That came up during a couple of the effective management sessions. We have been talking about that, developing some rules of procedures for the Planning Commission, modeling it with the recently adopted Board of Supervisors rules of procedures. So Clayton and I have been talking about that. That's something that we're going to be working on drafting up and bringing to the Planning Commission for consideration at an upcoming meeting. But it was good to hear them mention it during the training as well. A couple of other just notes that I took down that I thought were interesting and things that the commission may want to think about incorporating. There was conversation about a declaration of commissioners at a hearing when they have met with either applicants or with members of the public or interested groups. Thought that was a good best practice that came up and something that commissioners might want to think about, as well as validation of applicants' agreements to conditions of approval That was something also that came up as a best practice, making sure that we are validating the applicant's understanding and agreement with conditions of approval at the hearing. And those were just some of the takeaways that I had, and so interested in hearing from the members that went to the training as well, what your thoughts were and takeaways.
Okay, so at this time, the commissioners that attended, or if others want to, we'll allow a report out by the various commissions. So give you each a chance to give a little view of what you thought you've heard or saw or what. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to comment as a brand-new baby commissioner. The timing of that training was very good. I learned a lot, and I will, particularly in some of the things that the planning director just mentioned, I thought probably the best takeaway I took was the open declaration of contacts and meetings that we have, and I think the idea of giving us our own planning commission email will help facilitate that and document those conversations, and I'm really intending to follow that course of action. I also just wanted to mention that the Cal Cities staff, their presentation and overview of the pending legislation. So we've had a lot of legislative changes that affect housing in the last couple of years. There's a big wave still yet to break on the shore, and it was very well presented, very clear manner. And I'm watching a lot of those bills now, anticipating how we in the future the county will be implementing them. So it was a very worthwhile exercise for me, and there's a lot of other things I could mention, but those were the top takeaways. So thank you.
Just kind of repeat what everybody has said. It was very informational. I wish it was something I probably would have had 3 years ago, but still never too late to learn it. Again, and I went home and made my own email to try to keep it separate, but I think that's a great idea. And being open to the public is another takeaway that, listen to both sides, and kind of what I've been doing anyways, but it was very good, and I think there should be more, maybe follow-ups to that, just to kind of keep us refreshed. I don't think it's you can always learn something no matter what you do. So thank you guys for all your help too.
I thought it was invaluable. As being a commissioner for less than a year, I learned so much. The workshops were fantastic. I learned a lot about the direction that the state is going. I learned a lot from other counties when they got up to talk about what's going on in their county and how it could apply to us. In some counties, it really doesn't, because it's apples and oranges. The best part, though, is getting to know my fellow commissioners and new staff and county council, and getting to put our heads together, not on specific projects, but it's just in general on planning and planning commission activities. So I thought it was fantastic, and I wish they did more of these, because it was a great opportunity to learn and to communicate. So, and it was excellent.
Yeah, my turn.
Mhm.
Sir.
Yeah.
Dan and Bridget, we missed you guys. Wish you could have been there.
I was in France. I'm really.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I think the email and communication process could be helped. A lot of what I heard about that. So I'm grateful that planning is willing to help us with that. A lot of concerns came out at the conference about communication and process. And so I want to make sure we do that. I think a lot of housing things, SB 330, SB 35, to find out the realities of those was really beneficial. I also think SB 1000 was helpful. It's the financial interest conflict information. I think that was really helpful. SB 9 about dividing anyone can just divide a lot, is really clarified there. AB 2449 about remote attendance. There's been some clarity with that, which is really helpful, about emergencies and the ability to attend remotely, how many times per year we can do that, which was really helpful for the details. A lot of great Brown Act stuff came out, clarity on that, doing the right thing. I think we're great, but just reminders about Brown Act. And process, the realities that the state has put in place and our restrictions as commissioners, being aware of that can help us understand our authority. And I think that was really presented well. I did think the keynote was fantastic too. Yeah. The keynote was great. Just leadership, inspiration about who you are as a leader. What are you going to stand for? What values are you trying to initiate? I thought it was really well done. Thanks for the opportunity to go. Really appreciate that.
Okay, so you've kind of, well, let me see, I would say that, you know, my observation was that the theme of this was really affordable housing. That was pretty much underlined in all the presentations. And so that was very interesting to hear, and it's something that we all need to be aware of. It's happening, you're talking about the wave that's still coming. And so the state level is really throwing down the gauntlet to make sure that we provide some affordable housing. And there is clearly in the state a division between the upper group that can afford houses and the group that can't afford houses. So that was really a theme and something that was really valuable for us to hear. And, you know, I really appreciated the ability for us to meet together with staff and as planning commissioners in kind of an offline. We didn't really spend any time discussing anything that's on the agenda with the upcoming meetings and that kind of thing, but we did get to know each other a little bit better. So I really appreciated that. That was a good call for us to do that. So with that, I know there's a couple of you that weren't able to attend, but if you have heard anything here or want to make a comment, you're sure welcome.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chris had mentioned a few meetings ago that there are more of these coming up and more opportunities for us to get information and education. And if you could just at some point remind us of when those times are so we can mark the calendar, make sure we can make ourselves available. I'm sorry to have missed it. I went to one about 20 years ago and it was made a huge difference in how I worked and how I was a planning commissioner for the city of Auburn at that time. And yes, you develop better relationships on how to work together, how to communicate during the meetings. And I'm sure it was worth every minute of your time. And I'm, again, sorry I wasn't able to attend. So next one.
So I'll absolutely let you know of any future opportunities. The League of California Cities is the one that we went to. The Academy training is an annual training, but there are other organizations that offer some trainings as well. So we'll let you know of those and then send out the maybe save the date for the for next year's Academy.
The League of Cities has a conference here in October at the Downtown Convention Center that is for planning commissioners and Board of Supervisors and planning staff and the whole array. This was really focused on planning commissioners, but that's in October here in Sacramento at the Convention Center. So maybe that's something we could all attend if we're interested.
Okay, well, thank you, commissioners. Let me see, I do need to open it up to the public if there's any public comments. Anything online? What? Oh, okay. Okay, well, I guess that was a lengthy public comment, but we'll close the public comment. And this is mainly just for information, so unless anybody's got an additional comment.
Just one more comment.
Okay.
Being that some of the commissioners can't always make these meetings, is it possible without interfering with the Brown Act that you guys could sit down with us and kind of review what's happening, what's going on, kind of like we were at this conference, but here on a local level, just for more insight and knowledge and training for ourselves, if it's possible. I don't know if it is. That's why I'm asking, because I don't want Clayton ears to pop and we're going to be in a Brown Act.
Yeah, so The broad answer to that is yes, definitely. Any training that or recap of events is certainly something that staff can provide, and there's no Brown Act issues with that.
We'll need that for 330. We have one SB 330 project in Placer County, and we will need specific 330 training, all of us, because there are some rules around objective and subjective standards and things that we can't make decisions on because we're not allowed to make decisions on. So we're going to need definitely specific training on that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
that-
we have.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
think
I
we
think
actually
that-
may have 2 now, but yes, certainly something that we're going to be seeing more of, and SB 330 is quite involved in terms of statutory frameworks.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I guess these would be agendized, right? When we're going to do that? Okay, so any ideas any commissioners have, like 3:30, then let them know and we can get it on the agenda and do a little workshop.
Yeah.
And we can involve the public in that too, so.
Certainly, and if you have interest in individualized training too, please feel free to reach out. We can provide individual training on any topics of interest too.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, is that it for us then today? Okay. Meeting's closed. Thank you, folks.